NASA keeps delaying Starliner's first official crewed mission. Boeing CST-100 Starliner, a spacecraft designed to ferry astronauts to and from the International Space Station, ISS, has faced repeated delays, with its first official crewed mission now pushed back multiple times. The ongoing postponements of Starliner's inaugural flight for NASA's Commercial Crew Program are causing questions about the future of the program and highlighting the complex challenges in developing and certifying new spacecraft for human spaceflight. Initially set to fly in 2017, Starliner's first crewed mission has encountered numerous obstacles, from software issues to hardware malfunctions, to changes in leadership and oversight. The numerous delays of Starliner's first mission have turned what was once an optimistic step toward diversified crew transport into an ongoing saga of troubleshooting and refinement. This article explores the reasons behind the delays, the technical challenges facing the Starliner program, the implications for NASA's human spaceflight initiatives, and what the future might hold for Starliner and commercial crewed missions. Background on NASA's Commercial Crew Program. NASA's Commercial Crew Program, CCP, was established in 2010 with the goal of fostering partnerships with American companies to develop safe, reliable, and cost-effective human space transportation. Following the retirement of the Space Shuttle in 2011, NASA needed a new way to transport astronauts to the ISS. The program aimed to end NASA's dependence on Russia's Soyuz spacecraft, which was the only available crew transport option for nearly a decade, and to reduce the costs of accessing low Earth orbit, LEO. In 2014, NASA awarded contracts to two companies, SpaceX and Boeing. SpaceX would develop the Crew Dragon spacecraft, while Boeing would work on the CST-100 Starliner. The Commercial Crew Program was structured to encourage innovation and competition, with each company expected to design, build, and certify a vehicle that could safely transport astronauts to and from the ISS. SpaceX successfully launched its first crewed mission with Crew Dragon in 2020, marking a major milestone for the Commercial Crew Program. Boeing's Starliner, however, has encountered a series of challenges, leading to delays and missed targets for its first official crewed flight. Timeline of delays. A history of Starliner's setbacks. Early development and initial delays, 2014 to 2017. When NASA selected Boeing's Starliner in 2014, both Boeing and SpaceX anticipated launching crewed missions by 2017. However, technical challenges related to safety, reliability, and system integration soon began to slow the program down. Starliner's development was hindered by delays in parachute testing, launch abort systems, and issues with spacecraft components. These setbacks caused Boeing to revise its timeline for the initial flight several times, pushing the launch date further into the future. The 2019 Orbital Flight Test, OFT-1, anomaly. Starliner's first uncrewed test flight, known as the Orbital Flight Test, OFT-1, took place in December 2019. The mission was intended to demonstrate that the Starliner could autonomously dock with the ISS and return safely to Earth. However, a software issue prevented the spacecraft from reaching the ISS. During OFT-1, a timing anomaly caused the spacecraft's autonomous flight control system to misinterpret its position in orbit. As a result, Starliner used up much of its fuel correcting its orbit, making it impossible to reach the ISS. Boeing ended the mission early, and Starliner returned safely to Earth, but the failure led to an in-depth investigation and significant software overhauls. Retest plans and COVID-19 impacts, 2020 to 2021. In response to the OFT-1 anomaly, NASA and Boeing planned a second uncrewed flight test, OFT-2, to repeat the mission and complete the necessary milestones for crew certification. However, the COVID-19 pandemic caused additional delays as both NASA and Boeing faced logistical and supply chain disruptions. By 2021, Boeing was ready to proceed with OFT-2, but pre-launch inspections revealed issues with the propulsion system valves. Corrosion in the valves caused by a chemical reaction with moisture delayed the launch yet again, prompting Boeing to return the spacecraft to the factory for repairs and more in-depth testing. Ongoing hardware and software issues. As Boeing worked to address the valve issues, NASA and Boeing engineers conducted a comprehensive review of Starliner's hardware and software systems. Boeing implemented additional testing procedures and refined its quality control processes to prevent similar problems from occurring in future missions. With every delay, NASA and Boeing continued to identify additional minor issues that required attention, including adjustments to the parachute system and upgrades to the spacecraft's life support systems. These incremental improvements, while important for astronaut safety, added to the delays and raised the question of when Starliner would finally be ready for its crewed mission. The uncertain path to crewed flight. Following the successful completion of OFT-2 in May 2022, Boeing and NASA began preparations for the first crewed test flight, known as the Crew Flight Test, CFT. Initially scheduled for late 2022, the mission was delayed to 2023 as Boeing and NASA worked to address final certification requirements. As of 2024, Boeing and NASA have yet to set a definitive date for Starliner's first official crewed mission. The program's repeated delays have led to cost overruns and raised concerns about the long-term viability of the spacecraft. Technical challenges facing Starliner. Starliner's delays are primarily the result of technical challenges encountered in the spacecraft's design, development, and testing phases. Some of the key technical issues include software reliability. The OFT-1 anomaly highlighted the critical importance of reliable software for autonomous spacecraft operations. Boeing has since implemented a rigorous software validation process, including the use of high-fidelity simulators, to prevent similar issues. Propulsion system design. The valve corrosion issue identified in 2021 forced Boeing to rethink its propulsion system design. Engineers have made modifications to prevent moisture from entering the valves and causing corrosion, but these changes required extensive testing and verification. Parachute and landing systems. The parachute system, a crucial component for safe re-entry and landing, has undergone multiple design revisions and tests to ensure that it can reliably deploy and slow the spacecraft during descent. Human rating certification. Certifying a spacecraft for human spaceflight involves a complex set of requirements that go beyond those for uncrewed missions. Boeing has worked closely with NASA to meet these requirements, but the process has been time-consuming and resource-intensive. Each of these challenges underscores the difficulty of developing a new crewed spacecraft and the high standards of safety and reliability required for human spaceflight. Implications for NASA's human spaceflight program. The delays in Starliner's crewed mission have significant implications for NASA's human spaceflight program. Key concerns include dependence on SpaceX. With Starliner still grounded, NASA has become increasingly dependent on SpaceX's Crew Dragon for crew transportation to the ISS. While SpaceX has proven to be a reliable partner, NASA originally intended to have 2 operational spacecraft to ensure redundancy and reduce the risk of disruptions in crew rotation. Increased costs. The repeated delays and additional testing requirements have led to cost overruns for Boeing and NASA. The initial fixed-price contract awarded to Boeing was intended to control costs, but the additional resources required to address technical issues have strained the budget for the commercial crew program. Impacts on future missions. The Starliner delays have also affected NASA's plans for future missions beyond the ISS. NASA hopes to use commercial spacecraft for missions to the Moon and Mars, but the challenges facing Starliner underscore the complexities of developing reliable crewed spacecraft. Public perception and confidence. The repeated setbacks have eroded public confidence in the Starliner program. Each delay raises questions about the feasibility of the spacecraft and the wisdom of continuing to invest in its development. What's next for Starliner and NASA's crewed missions? NASA and Boeing are continuing their efforts to ensure that Starliner can safely transport astronauts to the ISS. While the exact timeline for the first crewed flight remains uncertain, NASA has reiterated its commitment to working with Boeing to overcome the remaining technical challenges and complete the certification process. As of now, both organizations have expressed optimism that Starliner's crew flight test will take place within the next year, pending the resolution of any new issues that may arise.